Board to order. Everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have a number of dates for minutes that we do not have before us, so we'll defer those to a future date. So that brings us to the possible extension or abandonment of applications pursuant to town code. First one being Young's Grove, otherwise known as Rieger. We have a letter here from Engineering and Surveying Properties addressed to the planning board. With this letter, we are requesting a spot on the February 20th, 2025 planning board agenda to request two 90-day extensions of the conditional preliminary major subdivision approval for the reference project. Conditional preliminary approval is scheduled to expire on or about February 20th, today. We have attached a summary of activities that have occurred in the past several months in an effort to complete the conditions of preliminary approval. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact our office. Sincerely, Steve Esposito. Sean, you have the attachment as far as what accomplishments have been made?
I have it because Kelly gave it to me.
That works.
Would you like me to read it, Mr. Chairman?
See how
Please.
prepared I was?
Okay, this is their February 5th, 2025 extension request. These are the items that they have done or are working on. The applicant is requesting two 90-day extensions of its conditional preliminary subdivision approval. Since the approval of the following items have been completed, based on the current test results, we finalized the design of the water filtration system for submission to the regulatory agencies. We will copy the town on all submissions. Number two, updated the proposed pump station and force main plan for resubmission to New York State DEC. We'll copy the town on submission. Number three, the applicant is continuing a dialogue with the town board and village board regarding sanitary waste. Number four, waiting for a response from the New York State DEC regarding our water withdrawal permit application that has been submitted to the department on December 12, 2023. I haven't received any of those submissions. I don't know if the department has.
No.
Okay. So those are outstanding. I will follow up with the applicant to see if they just forgot to send those to us.
Okay.
We're pursuing the process.
Comments from the board?
Seems like work is in progress.
Ms. Ed, you good? Kelly, two 90-day extensions? Oh, Neil?
Just a comment. A while back, Jeremy brought up the idea that at some point in time, after an extended period, that perhaps we should be looking back at some things that have, we always did like on traffic, we did a 10-year look ahead or something like that. And now maybe 10 years since we approved it originally. So we're gonna do a 10-year look ahead, maybe it should be continued from that. And I don't know anything about Craigville Road necessarily. I do not know that on Coleman Road, traffic has increased significantly. The other concern I have is I know that threatened or endangered species has changed, evolved some, in that I know there's at least some bald eagles in the area, and I think that some of the species have changed also. So I don't know whether we should start looking back at some things that hang out there so long that I know like when we do stormwater, if they don't get the approval for stormwater, they have to go with the new standards.
Right.
I'm not so sure that that shouldn't apply here also for some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna have that be a comment generally about extensions because Neil's recused on Rieger.
No, I did bring it up with generally a while
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to
Yeah.
make it clear
Okay.
that that's just,
For the
since
record,
we're
yes.
having this conversation.
Okay. So,
So August 21st, 2025.
my wife's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Who would like to make that motion to extend the extension of the conditional?
I'll make the motion to extend the extension.
Extend the extension to August 21st, 2025 by Phil, second by
I'll second it.
Diana. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Next item, for possible extension or abandonment. Letter dated February 10, 2025. This is for IWS Transfer Station, Goshen Transfer Station upgrades, Hartley Road. Just to the planning board engineer. On behalf of the IWS Transfer Systems of New York Incorporated, Cornerstone Engineering and Geology PLLC, Cornerstone is submitting this written request for a 6-month extension to the site plan approval that will expire, again, on February 20th, 2025. Cornerstone is also requesting a 1-month extension. An month? Is that 1 month? An month?
I don't know what it is, Mr. Chairman.
It should be longer than 1 month anyway, just because they're still going through the process with the town board.
What it should be is a 6-month approval, or extension, I'm sorry, 6-month extension of site plan approval, which expires.
And then for the special permit?
Usually it's 1 year, but you could tie it to 6 months if you want them to go at the same time.
Okay, well, we could talk about that, because it just says "and," so I have no idea. To the special permit that will expire on February 28th, 2025. It is our understanding that the IWS project has been placed on the February 20th, 25 Planning Board meeting agenda to consider these 2 requests for extensions for the proposed transfer station improvement project. Please feel free to contact me at this forward number or this address if you have questions or require any additional information. Sincerely, Kristen Thordahl, Cornerstone Engineering and Geology. What could you offer me, Sean?
Just what I said before, 6-month on site plan, and special permit could be up to a year, but you may wanna make it 6 month,
Just-
just so they're,
Consistent,
yes. Kelly can do anything with you.
okay?
Your wife's birthday.
Same thing, okay.
Yeah.
Comments from the board? Neil, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, good.
I appreciate that.
Well, I'd offer. Could I have a motion then to provide the 6-month extension for the site plan approval and 6-month extension for the special permit to August 21st, 2025?
I'll place a motion.
We have
Eric.
George. Eric, second by Diana, all in favor, say aye. Against? Okay. Oh, it's gonna be one of those nights. George,
That was
as if I'm not confused enough. Okay, next item on the agenda. It's a public hearing for Gerda subdivision, 19-1-117.1 and 117.21. Application for a subdivision along Maple Avenue, County Route 37, in Gerda Lane, which is a private road, RU zone with an AQ3 and scenic road corridor overlays. And we're here with,
Brad Cleverly from MJS Engineering.
welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
First off, do we have anybody from the public for this public hearing? Not yet, okay. Well, Brad, if you can give us a brief
Certainly.
summary, because right now there is no one from the public that's
Curious.
here for this public hearing.
This is a subdivision. There were 2 lots here, a lot here. There will be 2 lots, somewhat different configurations. This lot number 1 will be a rear lot with frontage on Gerda Lane, which is a private road. So we're gonna go from 2 lots to 2 lots.
Brief enough?
I can make it shorter if you want.
Do we have comments from the board? No comments. Kelly, it says here, secra.
You actually issued a negative
We did that
declaration,
day.
yeah, on February 6th.
So I could then ask, open the public hearing.
Yes, you can.
Could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second by Giovanni. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Public hearing is open. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this project?
Really?
Awesome.
My name's Chris Healy, I'm a
Just to
town
have
of
something
Goshen
on
resident,
record.
and I think that somebody should at least say something. I've been following the project from the very beginning. The project seems to be a project unto itself. It doesn't change anything of the characteristic of the surrounding neighborhood, doesn't seem to have anything to do with traffic. They're really nice properties. I feel bad that the applicant has had to go through this much trouble just to get this far. I would wholly support a very quick approval and let them build. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.
Well done. On the clock.
Anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this application? If not, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Giovanni, second by Seamus. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Kelly, we have a resolution.
Yes, I understand there were some issues with some people's emails, so what I will do is, usually I read the specific conditions, I'll do that again. If anybody has any comments that did receive them or didn't have problems with emails, just let me know. But I prepared for you a resolution of conditional preliminary and final approval for minor subdivision. Scrolling, what? Okay. Scrolling down, you've got your regular findings, and then there is a finding for the scenic road corridor overlay. In accordance with the requirements for the scenic road corridor overlay district, the planning board further finds that this project will not result in the degradation of scenic character, will be aesthetically compatible with its surroundings, will minimize the removal of native vegetation except where such removal may be necessary to open up scenic views and panoramas, and will locate and cluster buildings and other structures in a manner that minimizes their visibility from the road to the extent practical. The next one, so since Brad put it as it's going from 2 lots to 2 lots, the project does not present a proper case for requiring a park or parks suitably located for playgrounds or other recreational purposes, and no payment in lieu of parkland is required. The planning board made this finding on the basis that there are no new lots being created by this minor subdivision. The next one, at its February 20th, 2025 meeting, the planning board, consistent with the requirements of section 8332 of the Code of the Town of Goshen, waived the prohibition on common driveways and permitted a common driveway as shown on the plans for Lot 1 and section 19, block 1, lot 73.32. The planning board found that under the circumstances of this particular project, the prohibition was in conflict with the environmental and scenic resource protection purposes of chapter 97 zoning. There was a slight modification to that, so, okay. And pursuant to section 8319B, the planning board has waived the requirement to plant street trees along Maple Avenue, County Route number 37. Such trees are unnecessary as such trees would block scenic views. You have to make sure you agree with that because I put that in there and just wanted to make sure it was consistent with what you thought.
Comments from the board?
Proceed.
Proceed. What about this end?
I have enough trees anyway.
Enough trees, okay.
So then, specific conditions, prior to the signing of the plat by the chairman, the applicant shall A, revise the plat in accordance with the December 13, 2024 memorandum of the town engineer to the satisfaction of the town engineer. B, place a deed restriction over lot 1 in favor of section 19, block 1, lot 73.32 in accordance with town code section 9719 F1 to provide legally adequate and physically practical access to Gerda Lane, including utilities. The deed restriction shall be drafted to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney as to form. Proof of filing of the deed restriction with the Orange County Clerk's Office shall be provided to the building department prior to the signing of the plat. C, demonstrate compliance with town code section 9719 F1 through 7 to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney and building inspector. D, the applicant, the applicant shall revise the plat to demonstrate compliance with section 9729G of the town code, including the identification of the location and species of all new trees.
Should that one come out?
Yep, now that you're, well, I had to have it in case you didn't agree. D, a common driveway maintenance agreement for, lot 1 and section 19, block 1, lot 73.32 must be revised to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney, and proof of filing such agreement with the county clerk must be provided to the building department. And that's it.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, just a question for Frank, really. Are you comfortable with these proof of filings being submitted to you, or you're comfortable knowing that they filed the right thing?
Well, if it's not, I will consult with Kelly if there's any question.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying, maybe it should go to Kelly, but.
Well, it usually, honestly, it usually does come back to me. It's a record and return too. It's something that's supposed to be on there. It gets recorded and returned to me, and I send it to Frank.
Building department.
So, and if by some reason it goes to somebody else, it usually ends up coming to me anyway, and Frank will check with me beforehand, so. We got a good process.
Works. If there's no comments, could I have a motion to approve the resolution of conditional preliminary and final approval, minor subdivision for Wayne Gerda, estate of Janet Gerda and Gerda Gardens Ltd. as revised or modified this evening?
I'll place the motion.
Diana? Second?
Check.
Seamus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? It is approved. For the public, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Brad, don't go too far.
I'm not.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, we're reversing this agenda a little bit, just for the convenience of the engineer standing in front of us. We're gonna go to Luna Realty LLC, Northeast Great Dane, 20-1-33.1. It's an application for an amended site plan for a truck repair and sales facility on 11.6 plus or minus acres along New York State Route 94, Randall Street, in the CO zone with an AQ3 floodplain and ponding overlays. And we're here this evening to consider a draft resolution on this application.
So I've prepared for you a draft resolution. It's an amended resolution of conditional approval for major site plan. Again, since I know some people had trouble with the email, I'll review it. So we'll just go through it and then anybody can ask any questions or revisions. You had your normal findings. I did update, the fence, where'd that go? So there was one where I had a blank in there about the fence, and I can't remember if I resent you the revised version, but Frank made the finding that the existing chain link fencing is a legally pre-existing non-conforming condition, so no variance is required. I do have a comment that was next to exactly what the variances were that the ZBA granted. I know that they granted generally these variances, but I just wanna make sure that the resolution includes the specific numbers. So when I get that, I will insert the numbers. And then, in accordance with Town Code Section 9725, the planning board finds that the area located within the floodplain and ponding area overlay district is safe from flooding and ponding. And I'll get to the footnote. Additionally, the planning board finds that there is adequate means of vehicular access to the area from an existing street, which is safe from flooding. I have footnote 2, that the planning board is not approving the propriety of any existing encroachments into the floodplain. A floodplain development permit is required in connection with Chapter 61A flood damage prevention of the town code. See also specific condition number 2.
Good, Kelly, question. Going backwards, that item 3 and 4, they have highlighted, no requirement for open green space or outdoor storage. What does that mean by the outdoor storage one?
That's such a good question that I think Brad should explain it.
Certainly. As part of the operations of a Great Dane, which have been ongoing for decades, they maintain trailers and in this building, and along with that, they park the trailer just like any vehicular service station. They have cars outside, they have cars inside. In this case, they have trailers which are throughout the site being stored before they get in for service, and then they go out again. And so the outdoor storage is essentially trailers, that's the bulk of the storage, which are located throughout the site on this, in the gravel area, which extends around the site.
And the zoning board gave the go ahead on that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what it was for, okay.
So I think too that was relating to the, I'm trying to pull up the code provision. Just a second. So it's 9714D5 that discusses outdoor storage and enclosed buildings. And there's a certain amount that they are permitted in completely enclosed structures and then outside. So the ZBA, from my understanding, and their restriction in their authority, were allowing a certain amount of outdoor storage because they're specifically related to this use. But not the location necessarily, because some of the location may be included in the floodplain, which goes back to the footnote. So, but again, when I get that specific language, I reviewed the minutes and it really wasn't clear, so I've asked for the draft decision.
Okay.
So that I can
That'll
put,
get inserted in.
yeah, I wanna make sure that it tracks the proper language that the ZBA used.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I didn't have
No,
that.
that answers my question.
So then, specific conditions. Number one, all applicable conditions attached to the site plan approval from 1998 and any subsequent amendments thereto are hereby incorporated into this resolution and are to remain in full force and effect, and this approval is subject to and conditioned upon satisfaction of those conditions as if they were set forth at length herein. Number two, the applicant shall apply for and obtain a floodplain development permit in connection with chapter 61A flood damage prevention of the town code. Number three, prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the town engineer dated September 13th, 2024, to the satisfaction of the town engineer. And B, remove the outdoor storage and parking of trailers from the floodplain to the satisfaction of the town engineer. 4, the proposed parking and equipment storage areas shall be gravel as shown on the plan unless the building inspector determines the gravel surfaces or the existing pavement surfaces create unanticipated nuisance conditions, dust, ponding, excessive maintenance, etc., at which time the applicant will be required to pave or repave and stripe these areas to the satisfaction of the town engineer and the building inspector. All light levels must be limited to 0.1 foot candles at the property line, so no off-site glare will result. The fixtures shall meet IDA, LEED, or Green Globes criteria for nighttime friendly or dark sky lighting. Any well-packed fixtures shall include non-glare full cutoff shields. And 6, the applicant shall be required to keep outdoor storage in an orderly manner in the areas shown on the site plan. That's what I've got.
Comments from the board?
Have we reviewed the 1998 conditions?
We've reviewed the site plan, yes.
And we're comfortable that there's no conflict between these conditions and the conditions in 98?
Well, I think these conditions actually further clarify, so the 1998 plan did not specifically show, it showed like paved areas, and that was it. It didn't show individual parking stalls, things like that you normally see now. So I think that's where a little bit of some of the confusion was, which I'm sure the applicant will want to speak to, about locating parking. And even though it's been there for years, it really wasn't shown on that site plan, which is why we've asked it to be pulled out of the floodplain. For that, I'll turn to Sean. But I find that this resolution is consistent
Okay.
and updates based on current site conditions.
Other comments? Neil?
Just a question. I'm not sure why trailers are considered to be storage outside as opposed to parking, but my bigger concern is where we allow storage, does that only include trailers or does that include outdoor storage of parts and stuff like that? I just,
The applicant hasn't requested parts in their application.
but I'm just figuring out how we write this resolution as to the outdoor storage of complete trailers, or do we say just outdoor storage is permitted?
No, I think it's outdoor storage is shown on the plan. I think it's one leads into the other. So for example, the applicant couldn't store, equipment, if you will, or anything like that isn't shown on the plan.
You know, I'm thinking you might have axles with tires on it, or
Do you have
landing
axles
gear
with
or something
tires?
like that.
None,
How about axles without tires?
possible.
Just tires?
I have not done a complete inventory of what's stored on the site, but it's all
No,
ancillary.
I don't mean to be flip, but
Yeah.
you know this from your previous position. I mean, Frank is going to have to take that plan, if there's something in there that doesn't jive with the plan or jive with the resolution, then it's either enforcement action or the applicant's back here. If all of a sudden there are, to use your example, axles and tires on the site, and Frank says, I don't think this was approved, then the applicant's gonna be back here for an amended approval.
No, I agree, and I'm just trying to, look, if the applicant knows they're gonna need to have axles out there or tires out there or something, let's get it in there now if we do it, as opposed to having Frank have to deal with it later. That's like,
Well, I feel like they've had a few months to do that and a couple of boards, so if they wanted it, they should have done it. If you want it now, either wait,
I like
or you'll
to
have to come back.
keep it the way it is.
Other comments, questions? Nope. If not, can I have a motion then to approve the amended resolution of conditional approval major site plan for Lunar Realty LLC, also known as Great Dane, as to be modified?
I'll place the motion.
Diana, second by.
I'll second it.
Giovanni, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Drive safely.
You too.
Think of us on your way home. Next item on the agenda is Uniplan, 12-1-117. We have an application for a site plan and special permit for the conversion of a warehouse to light industry on 5.3 acres, New York Town New York State Route 17M in an HC district, AQ6 overlay. We have revised plans and a draft resolution to consider. Welcome.
Just for the record, Jay Samuelson, Engineering Properties, just to remind you what this is the existing furniture auctions building on 17M that has been sold and being converted to a facility that accepts paneling that's pre-finished. It's cut to size and shape and then redistributed out to independent suppliers, cabinet makers to finish the cabinets. So this is for a change of use. There's very little changes to the site plan. There's some landscaping being added, some cleanup done to the dumpsters and the trailers in the back, but that is the extent of the application.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, all I can add is that when this was on your January 16th meeting, the board had a number of comments. You would ask the applicant to submit a revised plan to address those comments that you would consider in conjunction with the resolution that you have this evening.
And
I believe that they've addressed everything, but it's up to the board. They were the board's comments, so if there's anything outstanding, we could always either ask the applicant to revise the plan again, or perhaps incorporate another resolution condition.
I do have a couple questions. First of all, the floor plan that we originally looked at did not show the availability of restrooms for the one tenant. It seemed to be in a separate section of the building. Was there a passageway or something?
It's my understanding this will be all one tenant of Uniplane.
Right, but we had the
Hold on, wait a second.
Wait, don't say that.
existing tenant.
Okay, then I was told incorrect.
Well, it's because only part of the building is proposed to be converted for Uniflame, and then there's,
The scuba,
European outdoors.
European outdoors. Yeah.
Okay.
so,
Jay, I actually asked your partner about
Yeah.
that because it was my understanding that this applicant eventually wants to take over the entire building. And Ross had indicated that at this point, this was what they wanted. And
Okay.
I reviewed this resolution with him. so-
Okay, because that's what he told me today, but if that's what he told you, I'll go with what he told you.
Things change, so if
Yes.
something's changed. Okay.
Is that something that gets handled by the building department?
No, I don't think so.
Or we don't even,
So for example, they're gonna have a split use, right? They're gonna have, light industry is what's coming in,
Right.
and the warehouse for European outdoors is remaining. If they change those numbers, my understanding is Frank is gonna make them come back to you for, amended approval.
well, it wasn't a matter of changing the numbers or the size, it was just a matter of the way it was drawn up on, at least what was presented to us, there were no bathroom facilities on the one tenant.
You could include a condition that the architectural plans have to provide for, and this would be picked up when you do your building permit.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
As long as it's not, I'm sure they're gonna use facilities, they're not gonna go around the corner. But just wanted to make sure that the plan reflects the modification. The other question I had, the septic system was dye tested. Did anybody take a look inside the septic tank to make sure the baffles or anything are still intact?
I do not know that answer. I can confirm that with Ross. I mean, that could be a condition that we can provide an additional inspection and provide that letter to you.
no, I have no problem with that, Mr. Chairman. As far as I know, they did not actually look inside.
It wasn't written on the
Yeah.
certification.
Correct. And my reading of the certification, I don't think that it was done, but if that's something that you want done, it's something we can do and provide that as an additional certification.
Other comments from the board?
No. Just a question for you, Kelly. It says potential in the resolution, potential finding rate 97-48A4,
yes,
and what is that?
just give me a second. Ninety-seven, what, eight?
97-48A4.
Oh, that's parking.
It's the parking in front of the building.
So let me just get that up for you. Four is design, layout, and construction of the parking area, so it talks about the location and screening, so that the parking had to be behind the facility.
Yeah. So Frank, is that a pre-existing non-conforming condition?
Yes.
I noticed we did add some landscaping in the front,
Yeah.
which was very nice.
Wait, can I see that?
Kelly, on the resolution, very first paragraph, the square footage of the mezzanine and the overall building were slightly different numbers than what was presented earlier. Was there a reason those were changed or updated? We had 7536, it was 7553, and the 36,000 was 36,055. I don't know which of the actual,
I think the applicant's double checking right now.
Yeah, those are the current numbers that are on the plan of what's in the resolution.
that's what's on the plan now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's probably where you got it.
I was just asked where Kelly got them from.
Yeah, the older numbers may have come from the engineer's report.
Ah, engineer.
Okay.
Okay,
Kelly.
so I was trying to write down a couple of the additional conditions, but we'll get to that. However, I just saw Neil had his hand up.
Yeah.
Look at my peripheral
Yeah,
vision.
good. My question, first is a question. I think that the applicant is saying they're gonna keep some of those storage containers there as part of the approval. And my question there is whether or not those storage containers should be included in the square footage size of the approval.
It's my understanding that prior to approval, that those storage containers
They're all
will be
gonna be
removed.
removed.
That was the response that we
Well,
gave.
I thought the last time, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah,
there was
that's-
6 of them that were there now, and then they had an additional
Right.
6, and they were gonna remove the additional 6. They're gonna remove all of them?
We spoke with them after the last meeting, and then the response that we provided said that all the additional storage containers will be removed prior to.
Oh, so that's all of them, good. This next thing is, I've heard that there's unregistered vehicles out there. I assume that those are gonna be removed too, and that's not an additional use?
That wouldn't be an additional use, but if you have a complaint, I suggest you raise it with the building inspector.
Okay, I didn't know if the applicant was modifying their application.
If they did that, the board can't approve it, so.
Thank you. That's it, thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Okay, Kelly.
Okay, so, scroll. Finding, your special permit finding. Planning board finds that due to the applicant reusing the existing structure, existing improvements, and the circulation of the property for employees, compliance with the requirement in 9714D regarding design standards would discourage the applicant from improving the property and would impose an unnecessary economic hardship on the applicant. As a result of the above, the applicant need not comply with the provisions of the above cited code section. That's all of the architecture and stuff like that, bike path and everything. I have to insert the finding regarding parking in front of the building, and I have to insert a finding from Frank that this is legally pre-existing non-conforming condition, that the parking is in front of the building. Specific conditions. Number 1, prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the town engineer dated November 27th, 2024, to the satisfaction of the town engineer. Number 2, the applicant has indicated that if a fire suppression system is required, any water storage tank will be located within the building. If it becomes necessary to locate the water storage tank elsewhere on the site, the applicant shall return to the planning board for additional review. 3, there shall be no outdoor storage of materials and no outdoor storage containers. Number 4, no overnight tractor trailers shall be permitted on site. Number 5, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the existing European outdoors sign shall be removed to the satisfaction of the building inspector.
On that one, I think we should just say the existing wall-mounted
The exist-
European outdoor sign.
Why, is there another one?
There's the pole sign that's gonna remain.
Okay.
Okay, and as part of that, there's also gonna be a new condition that prior to the signing of the plat, the applicant shall revise the site plan, or prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall revise the site plan to include a sign detail. Number 6, should the use of this property increase in intensity from what is approved herein, in the opinion of the building inspector, the user of the property shall return to the planning board for review. Number 7 is one that you guys just came up with, so I'll have to come up with prettier language, but that the architectural plans provided to the building inspector have to provide for restrooms for all uses on the facility. And another one you just talked about, that prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall provide a visual inspection of the septic tank and certification by a New York State engineer for the septic tank. It's gotta be pretty. And then number 9 is the typical very lengthy special permit annual renewal condition with A, B, C, and D.
Comments, concerns?
Just, I think that Frank may have other issues as far as the building code and compliance with with dividing the building up, such as having electrical boxes on both sides so if stuff goes out. So I think that certainly there should be no expectation that complying with having bathrooms on both sides completes the building approval.
No, the bathroom is for the immediate use based on the footprint that's given to us now. Any modification that they would have to change the overall use of the building, of course, we'd have to go back to the building department.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the applicant didn't think he was done with just the bathrooms.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
they.
Jay, take that.
Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, can I have a motion then to approve the resolution of conditional approval and special permit, major site plan for Uniplank as modified this evening?
Jeremy so moves.
Yes, Jeremy. Jeremy moves, do I have a George?
I didn't even see his mouth move.
Okay.
Wait, are you really moving? Because, you know, I'm taking a minute.
Motion made by Phil, second by Eric, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
He just decided he was gonna make the motion and you took it away.
I kind of inferred that that was his intent by speaking up. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Next item on the agenda.
I'm ringing, sorry.
Okay. It's here, Truck Realty LLC, 12-1-7.13, 8.221, 8.222, 8.23. Application for an amended site plan for truck repair and facility on 22.6 plus or minus acres along 6.5 Station Road in the CO zone, AQ6 floodplain ponding, stream corridor, and water supply watershed overlays. We are here this evening for an initial presentation and begin the seeker process. Welcome.
Good evening, Jay Samuelson, Engineering Properties again. Also with me is Mark Jacobowitz, the applicant's attorney. As you said, this site is in the CO zone. It's in the floodplain overlay, the stream corridor overlay, and possibly one or two others that I can't remember off the top of my head.
You don't get extra points for picking all the overlays, you know.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, if I didn't have to, I wouldn't. The proposed proposal is to expand the existing repair facility, the truck facility that's on site. It's about a 20,000 square foot expansion. That expansion will be within the existing pavement area that's back there. Again, this is a very difficult site as the majority, if not the entire thing, is within the floodplain, the existing facility, the existing parking lot. The building itself is a few tenths above the floodplain elevation, so the first floor of the building is technically out of the floodplain, but everything else, the majority of the site is within the floodplain. So again, it's a pretty simple project. If we weren't in the overlays and we weren't in the floodplains with the expansion, there would be a lot we would have to do to get through this project, but my concern is tonight, and really what I want to talk about, is the development of this project in the floodplain, being that the entire existing facility, except the existing first floor of the building, is within the floodplain, does not meet the requirements of the floodplain zone. To raise the site out of the floodplain is not feasible. So we just want to talk about how we can get through and what modifications or what alleviations can be made to that section to allow this to proceed, because I don't want to go through a lot of detailed design with the floodplain and the flood analysis and the grading and everything else if there's no way that we can comply with this section of the code. So I just wanted to have that conversation tonight. I know there's a lot of other comments that Sean had, and there's a lot of them I have no issue complying with and getting you all that information, as all it was tonight was a very basic, down and dirty concept plan to start the conversation. But the main issue that I really want to talk about tonight to figure out how we move forward with this in the floodplain is that, so.
Just one basic question, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Sean. The whole front area off of 6.5 Station Road right now is filled with vehicles. Am I correct?
Not all the way to 6.5 Station Road, there is some room up front, I believe. But I believe the parking comes up to about here, if I'm correct. I don't believe it comes all the way up to the end of the street. I could be
Well,
wrong,
we're, right, at this point, that
Yes.
really is inconsequential, but.
but there's
it's not-
another facility in front of us that's not part of
Yeah,
this
but
one.
it's not shown on here, the parking. and-
Correct, there's an existing gravel area, I didn't show all the parking spaces in that area, but we can show them.
But you're
'cause it's-
intending to maintain parking there.
Correct, and we're intending to maintain the outdoor vehicle storage. We'll get into that I don't believe it's a parking lot, I believe it's outdoor storage for those vehicles. Obviously, there is a parking lot for the customers and employees, but the vehicles themselves is more of an outdoor storage, in my opinion. We can get into that later, but.
And where is the access road off of 6.5 Station Road to get into? the
So
park?
our
I'm not
access
seeing it.
comes through the easement that comes through the John Deere property, the very bottom right of the page. Yes, right there.
Okay.
Wait, don't you have a driveway up 6.5 Station?
I thought there was.
Yeah,
thought
I
there
looked
was
at a
too.
Google Earth the other day. You can see it on the plan.
Yeah. it's
Okay.
there.
But I thought the main access came through that side of the,
It's for the
When you
back
bring all the
storage
cars
lot.
in.
Yes, off of six
From
and
the
a half.
back lot, maybe.
There is one.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of well maintained, there's some landscaping.
But the one in the front, that's where they bring all those cars in, probably, that's where they park.
I didn't know there was a second access, Mr. Chairman, I just knew the one.
No, meaning the one on 6.5 Station Road. There's that,
I was only aware of the other one, but I
I'll
could be
pull up
wrong.
Google.
Yeah, the access is right there.
yeah,
It's right here, and they park a whole bunch of cars.
Right.
there. And this flooded, and the cars had to be moved.
yeah, well, that's part of my concern, you know, we're not showing the development.
Jay, can you just point out where you thought the access was? I haven't
Over
seen
here.
it.
Come down through here.
Okay.
So there is another access off this side, yeah.
They also
This is
come
all
over
Yeah.
here.
There's also another.
Why do we have so many parking spaces?
So this is
My question.
this is part of the
This is a-
overflow.
This is a truck repair, am I not correct?
That's where they store the cars.
Yes,
But you're
the
still
building
intending-
itself, but there's
But you're still
also,
gonna store all the cars for the,
correct.
auto,
That's what the storage areas are, yes.
Over here, these are all new
Over here
cars.
and in the back, yes.
This is all new cars, we
But
have storage here.
Where are the employees parking?
They park up here in front of the existing building.
Yeah, there's not that much parking there.
and in terms of truck repair, what kind of trucks are we referring to? What size trucks? Are we talking box trucks, tractor trailers, pickup trucks?
I
F-150s.
believe they're some of the larger vehicles if I'm correct, but
Meaning,
not tractor trailers, but the bigger Ford trucks, the F-150s, 250s, 350s, yeah.
I know when I had my car, I had to go there in my truck.
okay. But they're pickup trucks, just the larger,
Pickup
heavy-duty
trucks.
pickups.
Yeah, 150s,
Heavy duty.
250,
This
350.
one, trucks have been converted for utility trucks.
Yeah, we're not talking here about trucks and moving vehicles. Okay, Sean?
Mr. Chairman, I know the applicant's primarily concerned with the floodplain overlay.
Right.
Would the board like me to go through all my comments or just the floodplain?
The
comments?
the ones that he'd be most concerned about as far as moving this project forward.
Okay, well, that's all the comments then, Mr. Chairman.
No, meaning as far as, we rephrase that, whether the project can move forward.
Okay, well, I think there's even a higher level issue, and that's what you're talking about, Diana just mentioned it, and that's the inventory parking. There is truck service and retail, right? There's a retail component to the trucks on this site. Those are permitted uses in the CO, that would just be a site plan approval.
Okay.
So from code compliance relative to use, this is a complying site. The inventory parking is a different issue, and I had recommended in my written comments that we discuss that with Kelly. That may be pre-existing, legally pre-existing non-conforming use. If so, if that's being expanded now, let's say, for example, they had approval at some time for inventory parking for 200 cars, now they want 400 cars, that would then introduce a special permit into this application.
All the parking in the back now, is that all proposed?
No, that's all existing,
Is all existing there as well?
yes.
Behind the proposed building?
So this is something actually that was referred to Frank, and he issued a determination on it in September. And I'm just gonna read from that so I don't misquote him. It says, and it was directed to Mr. Topowitz. So it says, your letter references section 9714D5 relative to outdoor storage and enclosed buildings within the HCCO&I districts. You correctly note that this provision allows 10% limitation on the area, on the area of the lot used for outdoor storage to be waived by the planning board, and references the need to do so for automobile dealers. The storage of inventory off-site from the dealership is a separate use, and such principal use is not permitted in the CO district. Additionally, the vehicle storage / inventory parking is not accessory to the proposed retail and service uses, and therefore requires a special permit pursuant to Town Code Section 9732B, which authorizes the planning board to issue a special permit to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use, quote, by up to 50% of its area, provided that all other requirements can be met, and that such expansion does not reduce any non-conforming setbacks by more than 20%, close quotes. So then he continued, I'll just continue it. Please note that your client will be required to demonstrate that this legally pre-existing non-conforming use is adequately screened from neighboring parcels, and that the expansion area complies with the provisions noted above. So what the applicant really needs to do, to Frank's satisfaction, is demonstrate when this became legally pre-existing non-conforming. By that I mean it was there legally, and it predated the code provisions that, you know, didn't allow it. And then from there, and you can see on Google Earth, as you know, it expands over time. Show how that's only 50% of that. So that's something that's gonna take the applicant some time, and I think that's really a key issue for them. Along with the floodplain, which I'll go back to Sean for.
Yeah, one other thing before I jump into the floodplain, this has scenic road corridor overlay on it. That actually has its own setback. It's kind of buried in the code, it's not in the bulk tables. There's a 100-foot setback from the stream that's on site. Looked like you were less than that, Jay, when I scaled it off. Looked like you're 60. And
Yeah.
I just had a threshold question for Kelly, whether, because that's an overlay zoning setback, whether that setback can go to the ZBA for variance. I don't have the answer to that, but I just want to put that out there because that could affect the overall design for you. In terms of the floodplain, board, you're very familiar with the floodplain. You've had a lot of applications. This one is probably the most challenging site you've seen, just because of the scope of the floodplain in terms of the area. However, there's also a floodway on this, right?
Correct.
In terms of the floodway, what the applicant would have to do to meet your floodplain development code requirements is they would have to do a study that shows that the work that they're proposing would result in no increase in the flood levels. So they'd have to model the flood levels and make a determination that what they're proposing doesn't make any change to those. So that's difficult. It's not impossible. You've seen that before. And in terms of the floodplain overlay, so you have in your zoning code a floodplain overlay district. It's intended to protect properties from flooding, protect emergency services and things like that. Again, I'm just summarizing. If you want, when I'm finished, Kelly can read you the exact code language. In order for there's a use that's permitted. These uses are permitted in the zoning district. In order for the applicant to get to the ability, because of the overlay, to build in compliance with the overlay, with the underlying zoning code, they have to meet the floodplain requirement, and that includes demonstrating that it's safe from flooding, demonstrating that they have adequate access to the street. I don't know if they can do that. That other access road may be easier to prove that from, if you look at that, but your code is very specific in terms of what it needs the applicant to provide in order for you then to continue to review the application. And I don't know if that can provide that information.
So I can read that to you. if you want.
Where's the 100th-year flood elevation relative to the existing?
You mean, what's the number?
This gray line that we see here is the limit of it, so all this area is in the floodplain.
So if we were to have some torrential rains, extended torrential rains or swell, would the undercarriage of the vehicles all be displacing water? Would they be sitting in the water?
There's potential for it, yeah. Yes.
It's never happened.
Oh,
It hasn't happened to be.
They moved the cars.
We haven't hit
before.
100 years yet, I guess.
Oh, the new parking spot flooded, and they moved the cars.
Yeah, I know they moved the cars.
Before it happened, then when it rescinded, then they brought them back.
Where did they move them, that many vehicles?
All I know is that they were driving them out of there.
Fine, Graham.
Right, but meaning that, we got 500
A lot of
sites.
them come out here on, by Sunoco, because that's part of Healy Ford too. It's the old
Oh,
use
right
of
on.
Healy Ford, so they brought all the cars I know in there for a while.
That's all I have on the floodplain and the development hurdles.
So the fact that they could preemptively move the vehicles if they expect the water levels to rise, that's not a situation where it's putting anybody in harm's way. If they are taken care of beforehand, like we're always concerned about public welfare and stuff like that. We're not concerned about that, is that what we're saying? That if they could do that the way they're doing it now,
I think it would be beneficial if the board actually heard the exact code language. And you might want to hear it more than once because it's relatively short.
Kelly
Oh, God, I can-
Before she reads it though, that area, that parking area with the paved and everything, didn't they come to the board to get approvals to have that there?
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
No.
Not since
They
I've
just-
been.
They just put it there, okay, that's what I want to know. Okay.
So it says, notwithstanding the above, the planning board, upon a finding that an area in the FP overlay district is safe from flooding or ponding, may permit such area to be used in accordance with the regulations, including use, area, bulk, and height for the land use district. An applicant applying for such permission shall produce sufficient evidence that the area covered by the application is now actually safe from flooding or ponding. Such evidence shall include an indication that means of vehicular access to the premises from an existing street is safe from flooding, and may include engineering surveys and reports. Evidence shall also be submitted that sewage disposal, water supply, and surface drainage facilities are adequate to serve the intended use. Approval of an application by the planning board shall affect only that portion of the land in the FP district described in the application.
I think the applicant has a plan for the utilities, so I think that kind of melts away. I think it's really that shall produce evidence that it's safe from flooding and they have adequate vehicular access to the road. I think that's the rub here.
If he demonstrates what?
That the site is safe from flooding and there's adequate access for vehicles from the road.
So,
I wonder how Sandy affected that area, because that would have been obviously within the 100-year flood, and everything was flooded at that point, including the village. So I was just wondering how you handled it, because you were back then, you still had cars on that lot. I don't know if you owned it or not, but I know cars were there, because I found my Ford pickup there and I found my Escape there 5 years ago. So I know that cars were parked there. So I was just wondering if, when Sandy hit 12, 13, 14 years ago, whatever it was, that was the last biggest flood that this area probably had. And I wonder how it was handled at that time.
I don't know.
How can they prove it's safe from flooding when it's in the floodplain and it's flooded?
that's my question, is
I mean,
we can prove that we can get onto the site, but that's why I said, there's absolutely no way I can prove that the site is safe from flooding. That's why I said, I can't meet that regulation, or you gotta define what safe from flooding is, and if it's the ability to remove everything that's on the site that's within the floodplain out of it prior to a flood, if that's determining that it's safe, then that I can do, but if it's showing that the site itself is not within the floodplain, that's physically impossible.
So I actually have an answer to that. There's no definition in your code, right? So it's a zoning code issue, and you know where this is gonna go, and Frank knows where this is gonna go. It would be an interpretation by the building inspector. So if you are questioning that, if you think that you can meet some degree of safety, whatever that is, I think that would be a request for an interpretation from the building inspector if it's safe or not.
Sean, do you think a berm or something in that area would hold back some of the water, or is that
Perhaps.
blocking wetlands again?
Perhaps, but that may change the flood elevation upstream or downstream, which I can't do, so.
Cumulative.
Yeah, I may impact somebody else, and I can't do that. I mean, I know that even with the building itself, we've got some significant fills within the floodplain that we would have to mitigate somehow, by creating additional volume within the floodplain, as the water flows through there and starts to flood, so that the elevation doesn't change. And obviously, there are a bunch of engineering reports that we can do, and we've done them in the past, but until I do them, I don't know what the extent of that's gonna be, or how big those are gonna be, or if it's gonna work at all. But before I get into all that, because that's very extensive and very expensive, I wanna make sure that I have that answer. So now that I've got a way to proceed, I can do a little bit more without going crazy, to be able to come up with a plan that I can submit to get an interpretation. And if we can all agree on a favorable one between us and the building inspector, that we've got a way to make it work, then obviously we'll get into a lot deeper dive on a lot of these other issues and getting a lot more detail in the site plan like everybody's asking for, and a lot more information on the floodplain. But I needed to know the way to get around that, some of those provisions in that flood code before I got.
Get around.
Well, not get around, deal with, comply with.
Resolve and address.
Maybe you have,
No? Make them happy.
I make you happy, Sean.
It would
Bring
seem
them a cupcake, they'll be thrilled.
like, if we're talking about mitigating the effect of being in a floodplain, that having property with wheels on it and engines would be like the ideal stuff to have there, and that putting a building on it, which can't be moved as easily, would actually be a negative, sort of negative impact, like,
So you're saying that, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, the inventory parking is good, the building is bad.
relative to like the risk of being in a floodplain, it would seem that something you could drive out of the floodplain would be better than a building.
Correct, and the building that we would build, the finished floor would be above the
We
floodplain.
built on a pad.
And that's another conversation that I'll have with Frank about another section of the floodplain code, and the building code, but yes, the building itself would be above the floodplain level.
Okay.
But the surface around it, which would be most of the parking area and the storage area, will remain within the floodplain elevation.
I think what you're saying is they're not gonna let their brand new cars.
I'm not gonna, no,
Stay
I'm not gonna let the
there,
repair
drown.
inside the building and all the new buildings be flooded, no.
You can move, got it, okay. And with respect to the plan that we have, the floodway that's represented there, is that more or less where the 100-foot setback ideally would be measured from?
No, the floodway that's shown on here is schematic based upon some information that we were to get. That's not the actual plotted floodplain from the final survey that we would do to actually map that based upon the FEMA studies. That's just a schematic at this point in time. It generally follows the stream up to a certain elevation, but no, it's not relative of the 100-foot setback, no.
But in the particular area where the setback is measured from, they're very, very close.
Yes,
Okay.
well, the setback's measured from from
The high water.
the high water elevation.
Yeah, that's almost, it's within a couple feet, I
Right.
think, on your plan.
Right. So
You're not 100 feet. you know,
no, because there's existing pavement, and I'm not even sure the existing, that's all within 100 feet of that floodplain itself as well. So if that would be something that would require an area variance, that we'll have to discuss that.
Yeah.
How about a parking garage?
Cannot obtain a variance for that. Then the plan
From
can't
the
be approved.
scenic, from the stream corridor reservoir overlay?
Yes.
Yes, if it's the numerical version,
It is.
I've only seen it done here once before on, what's the one that was Fox something, Neil? Fox, there was a road that's got Fox in it,
Fox Lane?
no,
Foxworthy?
I can't remember. But there was one, I've only seen it done once. I am like losing my mind. Just give me a second, I can tell you.
So at this point, it's really on you, Jay.
No, yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to have more of a conversation than what we had at a work session a few months ago, but I wanted to get the whole board involved and get a very basic level sketch up, which I know you guys have a lot of questions about, but it wasn't intended to be a full design plan or a full
Right.
sketch plan. It was just something to get us here to have a conversation about how we can proceed forward.
Fox Road advertising. It's like a issue. So can I just ask, is the applicant, are you guys gonna do this like really focused on the floodplain, or are you gonna do it kind of in two prongs where one's floodplain and one's addressing the inventory offsite storage?
Yes. We have to address both of them somehow, so
I mean,
I need to be able to figure out how to address both of them, yes. So,
Okay,
I understand that, but
it's
we
not
will.
gonna be an easy task for you.
No, it's not, but I welcome not easy tasks.
Hey Sean, that area that they, I believe it's paved, where they park the cars to store, doesn't that,
No, it's gravel.
it's not, I thought they paved a section of it.
I think the driveway is paved.
Portions of the front area are gravel and portions are paved. There's a little bit of both
Right.
in that front area.
So does that paving also impact the flood?
Not necessarily. I actually think it might be better, more durable for during a flood.
No, I'm talking about, it could
It-
permeate into the ground, the pavement doesn't allow it to do that, so now it's
Yeah.
gonna raise the flood.
No, I don't think so, because they're flooding it much more. They may need a variance for the impervious surface coverage. That's not really an issue, because that's a variance that your zoning board definitely can give, so they know they need to seek that. I did just have a brief conversation with Frank about the floodplain development permit. So this board doesn't get involved with that. I mean, you typically want to see the areas for mitigation that they've shown, because that's part of the site plan. Just like you want to see, when you have an applicant that has a fire suppression system, you want to see the exterior tank, so they don't need to come back. Frank and I are going to check with the DEC to make sure that Frank is allowed to issue a floodplain development permit if we get to that point. That includes
That's-
car storage.
And that's a whole other issue with the new DEC wetlands. I may have a lot of work with them as well.
Okay. Well, the DEC has visited the town not very recently to go over floodplain development permits and where they've been issued and things like that, so we'll make
And
sure.
I'm referring to DEC and the wetland regulations, so.
What about that 100-foot?
Well, just with the new regulations, that most of this area in the back will be, most likely be a DEC wetland that'll have a buffer on it that will require additional permits from the DEC as well.
Yeah.
Did Jay tell you this is a tough site?
I think you may have mentioned it.
Wow.
Neil,
Give them your blessing.
It just,
Any kind of blessing.
as I recall, there was, at least I was aware of the fact that they had parking in front of the building along 6.5 Station Road. Not, on that side there, alongside John Deere. All the parking in the back did not exist. And then Mr. Healy bought this with already existing problems. In the back there, we actually had a truck that was burned with just the exhaust stack sticking out. So there was a number of issues that were there prior to this applicant getting the property. I think at the back of the property, at the end of there, that was also there was wetlands there when I walked it. And at that time, I was trying to get the other people to remove about 100 cars out of there that were not permitted to be there. So that was not paved back there. I think the existing building, the finished floor level was a little bit too low at that point in time, which I think is probably why the new building's being proposed to be 1 foot higher. I think that does take it out of the, where it has to be. My biggest concern, well, I have two questions really. One is, does FEMA have any guidance on this that might help us? And I don't know that it absolves us of making decisions, but if FEMA has some kind of information on this, it might be helpful. My bigger concern here is not so much the floodplain stuff as much as parking vehicles in the floodway. Certainly, we have all seen pictures of vehicles floating downstream and going down to the next bridge. And to say that, hey, we have a flash flood on the weekend and the applicant can call on everybody to come in and move the cars on Sunday is not the normal way we would consider protecting it, I don't think. So kind of look at this in two problems, floodplain and then floodway, and then maybe FEMA helps us out, so.
Yeah, I think DEC also, they play a role in the floodplain development permit process, so,
Jay, is there a emergency removal plan? Is this something that's been formalized?
I do not have that answer directly from you, but I can definitely find out, and if there's not, there definitely will be one.
At $50,000 a car, they're gonna make it out.
They're not leaving their cars there, it's gonna be flooded.
yeah, but I mean, I'm not.
No,
saying
I
that
don't-
it
I
has-
trust-
feels
I-
right. I've seen it myself,
Mhm.
cars are floating downstream.
Yeah, I've seen
What is that, we're floating off site?
From car dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
From car dealers?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, God.
The parking
I
garage
wanna see their
sounded better.
insurance.
They start sliding, backing into each other, it's a real mess. Okay, so, at this point, there's not anything else we can do?
No, I don't have it. I have the answers that
What you
I
need
came to get tonight, and
Exactly.
we'll be back at some point in time, hopefully.
And we will be here.
Good luck.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you.
I'm sorry.
Phil, Jeremy, come.
And at George, I bring him to.
I mean, I see you have a plan over here. You really have 17,000.
Sean,
Yes,
March 6th,
March 6th.
next meeting.
Yes, I checked with Grace today, Northern Bear will not be ready for that agenda. So right now, you only have Liberty Solar, they're coming back for an expanded part 3 that's revised. And also you have a referral for the town board for an EDB solid waste management permit for IWS.
Say that again, Sean?
Which part, Chief?
The IWS?
IWS needs a solid waste management permit, actually a true permit from the town board.
Right.
Under 80B of your code.
Yeah.
That portion of the code requires referral to this board as well as the ERB.
I emailed that out, did nobody get it?
When I got it, I didn't know what it
Nobody
was about.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh.
what-
It wasn't a virus.
What are they doing?
The code requires that a referral be made to the board for you to review and report. It doesn't really give you much more description than that, but prior to that meeting, I'll give you a little summary. The project,
One of those things is attachment, like 160-page,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yes.
Size. Are we expected to be reading that?
Yes, that was my question.
I
And
can't
if
tell
so,
you,
why?
I cannot tell you no, because the whole application was referred to you. So I would suggest you do your best, and what I can tell you is I'll get you something that basically outlines some of the code provisions that are applicable, that you may wanna consider when you're reviewing it. This
Jeremy, you
is-
take page 0 to 25.
There are some boards that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, listen, we got through Legoland, we can get through that. It's nothing.
They don't have cliff notes on this.
Unfortunately, the code does not define your role. It does actually define the ERB's role, I think, pretty well, relative to environmental review, but not
so
your.
the ERB comments are gonna be totally separate from the planning board comments on this one. They're giving assistance to the town board on a different
Wait,
level.
do I have to read the 160-page report?
If you want to.
See, that email
See,
from me.
you're sitting there laughing at us.
I got hoodwinked. I came in at the tough part.
You thought it was funny.
Let's
He
get it
saw an
on,
email
all
from
right.
me and deleted it.
I realize it's not, we have not seen that or had that sent to us.
I
You
sent
should
it
have
to you,
just
It was
but
sent
I sent it to
electronically.
your wrong email,
Okay.
so I will now
Thank you very
send
much.
things to your other
Okay,
emails.
and then the rest of the ERB will receive it too?
Yes, and I didn't actually have Chris's email, I thought Tom was still on, so Grace forwarded it.
Good
to
enough, thank you.
Any other
I
comments
just
from the
wanted
board?
everybody to get it early because it's so long.
Yes, it's good.
Comments from the board? Mark, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, we got Giovanni, second by Eric, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Have a good night.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.